This episode is brought to you by Trump Mortgage.
Good day. I'm Abby Overton, and this is The Real Deal. At the top of the news, the City Controller's Office confirmed that the city experienced the biggest building boom in history over the last 2 years. The residential market in Queens and Brooklyn has remained stable in the first 3 months of this year, and JCPenney will be coming to the Manhattan Mall on 33rd Street. That and more on the Real Deal webcast. But first, our interview of the week. If you've ever heard anyone say, "I get a nosebleed above 96th Street," you know that the street has served as a psychological border for years. But new projects built in recent years above 96th Street have managed to shift boundaries further north. One of those projects, 1200 Fifth Avenue, is asking for record prices on its condominiums. Roving reporter Jen Benepe spoke to Carrie Chang, Senior Vice President of the Corcoran Real Estate Group and exclusive marketing agent for the building. Here are some highlights from their conversation.
1200 Fifth Avenue is one of the buildings that you're representing, and for the first time ever in history, there is an apartment being sold at asking price for $19 million. Why do you think people will pay those kind of prices for an apartment above 96th Street?
First of all, this building has a very architectural significance, which is the Emery Roth architect, with views to downtown and Central Park West and Rep Terrace, and very, very sexy, we call a sunroom.
It's sexy because they can go nude sunbathing in there, I imagine.
Yes.
Are the boundaries that are defining the Upper East Side shifting, and if so, could you define them?
5-6 years ago, 96th Street is the boundary, and then people was reluctant to move there. So demographic has changed, and it has been moving up more to the north side, and I'm pretty sure in the next 5-6 years, anybody who buy in those areas, in my building probably, will getting a huge appreciation.
For the full interview, click on the link below. And now for the news. A new report from the city controller confirmed that the city has undergone a record building boom in the past 2 years. The city issued building permits for over 62,000 residential units in 2005 and 2006, according to an analysis from City Controller Bill Thompson's office. The 2-year total marks a 30-year high in the issuance of building permits. Residential markets in Queens and Long Island remained stable during the first 3 months of 2007, according to a new report by appraisal firm Miller Samuel. Average home prices fell 1.2% over the prior quarter, but the median sales price in the region, $437,000, was basically unchanged. The report tracks sales in Queens as well as Nassau and Suffolk counties, and the Queens market performed better than its sister counties in Long Island. Because the median sales price was static, the drop in the average sales price signals evidence of weakness at the high end of the market, said Jonathan Miller, CEO of Miller Samuel. JCPenney is close to signing a lease for a 150,000 square foot space at the Manhattan Mall. It will be the retailer's first store in Manhattan. The deal will require Vornado Realty Trust, which owns the mall at 100 West 33rd Street, to reconfigure the building's layout. Government-sponsored Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac said they would buy billions of dollars worth of subprime loans to help prop up the failing risky mortgage lending industry. The announcement comes as federal regulators are under pressure to rein in the amount of mortgages the companies can retain as investments, which currently make up 14% of U.S. home loans. Fannie and Freddie are also seeking to burnish their images in the wake of accounting scandals. Firms seeking space of less than 10,000 square feet, usually in Class B buildings, are largely responsible for the city's hot commercial real estate market. The high demand for small to mid-sized leases in Manhattan is one of the reasons the city is considering rezoning the Garment District to allow for more office space in the area. At 370 Lexington Avenue, Broad Street Development has signed around 100,000 square feet of leases since purchasing the Class B building last year. Occupancy has gone from 78% when Broad Street purchased it to around 95% today, and asking rents have risen from the mid-40s per square foot to the low 50s. This past Sunday, Mayor Bloomberg announced his administration's sweeping long-term initiatives for the city, dubbed Plan NYC, which will encourage the construction of 250,000 new homes. The incentives will be new zoning and tax breaks to accommodate a population expected to swell by 1 million in the next 20 years. Bloomberg also announced plans to develop unused industrial sites. The Supreme Court last week upheld a regulation issued 6 years ago that barred states from imposing state law on mortgage lenders who were subsidiaries of national banks. In an opinion by Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the court held that subsidiaries should be held to national terms set by their parent company, regardless of their prejudicial effect. The decision is a blow to New York State consumers who have long maintained that the OCC regulation allows federal banks to use predatory lending rates and discriminate against minorities and skirt state penalties and legal action in the process. An air rights transfer that would have allowed 2 developers to build the tallest building in the East Village was challenged and heard last week at the Board of Standards and Appeals. The transfer had been approved by the city for a proposed university dorm at 110 East 12th Street being built by Hudson Companies and New York University that would rise 26 stories. The height, 55% higher than local zoning allows, was being permitted because air rights were being transferred from an adjacent post office that is immune from local height restrictions. The challenge heard by the BSA calls into question why a private developer would be able to take advantage of zoning freedoms that should only be applicable to a federally owned post office. Thank you for joining us for this edition of the Real Deals webcast. Please join us next week for the latest real estate news. I'm Abby Overton, and this is The Real Deal.